Let me start real quick by introducing myself. I grew up in Germany and the Netherlands, graduated from M.U.M in 2010 with an MBA, and since then I've worked in the internet marketing field and doing partially design and consulting. There, graduation. After graduation, a few years later, after graduation I worked in the internet marketing field, and 2 years later I started teaching internet marketing at M.U.M, as you can see here. and you know, since then I've been doing more consulting work and teaching and also design work. I designed the tm.org website, the M.U.M website, and a bunch of other websites. Because of my background in internet marketing and design, I like to combine those two. I like to that's sort of my challenge, is to create websites that really try to have at the centerpiece, you know, that they are effective, that they result in conversions or sales, or you know, that there's some purpose to them. And so internet marketing is something I include or integrate into my design, but also something called UX, User Experience Design, for which I got a certificate by the Nielsen Norman Group. And we'll go into what user experience design means in a moment. Now, real quick about the sessions that we'll be having together. There will be 4 sessions. The first today, as I mentioned before, on website and landing pages. The second one on February 6th on social media. The third one on February 13th on advertising. And the fourth one on February 20th on tracking and testing. And so to get started with our specific session today, this is sort of a little bit of an outline of what we're going to talk about. The first topic, I mentioned this a little bit, it's called user experience design. That's what you'd call pre-website work. It's work that you do before you dive into building a website. Sort of you're strategizing and you're thinking through processes and designs, and with that also we'll talk a little bit about creating content and you know, some standards, some things to look out for when you're building a website, when you're supervising the building of a website. Then after that, we will go into search engine optimization, or SEO. And then we'll talk a little bit more about content creation. And then we'll talk about some options for website development. There's quite a few different options that you can choose from when you decide to build a website. One last piece that I forgot to add as a bullet is the landing page piece that we'll also be talking about. So to dive into user experience, is to define that a little bit. User experience simply refers to the way a product behaves and is used in the real world. A positive user experience is one where the goals of the user are met and the goals of the organization that created the product. So where both come together and both are gain what they wanted to gain out of that experience. And user experience design obviously is the process of developing that experience. You know, whether it is even, you know, the interface or the dashboard of a car, the inside of a car, whether it is a website like Amazon. Obviously, we'll be talking about it in the context of a website, or with regards to a website. But user experience design, you know, some examples for what good user experience design is, in this case, is that if somebody would walk into or step into this car, that it wouldn't take them very long to understand how to operate that vehicle. The buttons, the symbols, just that everything is sort of is either completely intuitive or it takes very little time and effort to learn. That's from the user perspective. In a website, good user experience design in the example of Amazon would be, for example, that the user the user comes there to shop for something, and the user wants to find something specific, and so making it easy for the user to find something, enabling them to search in the way that feels comfortable to them, the way that makes sense to them, to their criteria, would make for a good user experience on a website, in the example of Amazon. The whole process of user experience design involves different layers, you could say, different pieces or different sub-projects. And everything, since I already mentioned that it's sort of a coming together of meeting the goals of a user and then also meeting the goals of an organization, you have to come from the perspective of what are the website objectives? Why are you as a company building this website? And what are the user needs and goals for this website? So an example, simple example could be, if I were to design a website that sells my marketing and design work, I would say that some of my goals are, well, obviously, number one is to sell my service, and that can be measured by contact us submissions, get a quote submissions. It could be, another goal could be to generate trust and esteem, to excite somebody about working together, and perhaps even to simplify and streamline pre-project tasks. So if somebody were to work with me, it would make it for the both of us easier if they would understand exactly what my prices are, and also if, for example, we work on a clear project together that's very simple, that requires some images to be uploaded and some text, that they could do it right on my website, and then I don't, that there are some steps that can be eliminated and make the whole process simpler. Another goal of a web design or website in my field could be to give clients insights on the progress of the project that we're working on. So those are some examples for goals for if I were to consider why I am building a website. Then if you think about user needs, the way that we in marketing usually approach that is, the common thing to do is create a user profile, a common user profile. That includes demographics, for example, and demographics are criteria such as gender, age, location, income, relationship status, etc. But also something called psychographics, like buying preferences, values, religion, concerns, or sources of motivation. So you're trying to kind of build what this typical person would be like that goes to your website, the most common user of your website. And an example for psychographics could be that the person that comes to my website is concerned with adding value, making a difference, having a positive impact in the world, sustainability, healthy lifestyle that includes yoga. If my market is that, obviously, values quality over quantity, is an early adopter. So those are kind of some psychographic elements that I would include in my user profile. But then also, in addition to sort of the profile that you create, it's also good to think about the context a little bit. What is this? When the person comes to your website, is this person on a smartphone? Is this person at the office? Is the person in a rush to get somewhere? Does the person have some physical limitations? All of those things are important to consider and to integrate. And obviously, to some degree, you're especially when you start out and you haven't done a lot of this work, and you haven't been in business for a while, you're kind of making assumptions, and so the idea is then, later as you gain more knowledge and understanding, to refine this and get a better perspective. And obviously, a website is really it's an always evolving product that has to sort of, as you learn, include what you've learned and improve. But it's good to try to understand where the user is coming from. It's really important to try to step into those shoes and try to envision oneself, what one would need and what the sort of limitations, like I said, would be. You can then think about functional specifications and content requirements. So then you're starting to kind of look at, okay, based on those needs and goals, what kind of content do I need? And how does that content need to function to be able to meet those goals? So functional specifications are, something like, functional specifications could be how does the user go from one place to another? How do buttons react? How do things load? What do I? Sorry, no. Sorry. Do I need a form of some sort? Are they contacting me via a form? Do I want pop-ups? Do I want video? All the sort of functional pieces that I want to include it in my website. Then obviously also content requirements. What kind of written and graphic content do I need? And a good thing to help kind of come up with this information. A good way to come up with this information is to come up with what is called user scenarios. User scenarios are sort of taking that user profile and then creating a story. Creating a story with them and saying, for example, so imagining this profile, giving that person a name, a job title, and then a specific goal on the website, and then sort of imagining where would the person go? Would the person navigate here first? How would the person feel satisfied? How does the person leave the website? Kind of thinking through the whole path and the path through the website. That's what user scenarios are. And again, they're also made up. They're sort of imaginary, but they kind of get you thinking in the right way. One of the things that I oftentimes try to hammer in as much as possible to my students' heads is the concept that, to me, marketing can't be effective if you don't respect and understand where your customer is coming from. If you're not able to put yourself in the shoes and speak the same language and know what their needs are and expectations are with you, it's absolutely crucial. And so yes, using those user scenarios, you can kind of go into that and explore what that person would do, and with that, it then helps you come up with the content that you need for this website that you're creating. Good. What else? Oh, yes. And then one other one, this is a very straightforward one, obviously, is to go to other websites that are in your industry or field, and just seeing what they have done, seeing how they name things, how things interact, how things work on those websites, and kind of making notes about what feels good to you when you put yourself in the shoes of your audience and going to that website. What feels off, what felt uncomfortable, what loaded too long, what worked well, thinking through the sort of pros and cons of that experience. It's also one way to gather content for your website, but then also to think about what you want to avoid or include in terms of things that are good or bad. Good. Okay. Then, once you have created all that content, the index, you could say, of all the content and the functional specifications that you need for your website. So interaction design takes those those functional specifications further and looks at how specifically do we want these, how do we specifically want interactions to flow. You could say you're creating somewhat of some flow charts and you're saying, okay, from this step it goes to this step. What happens in each stage? You're kind of mapping out. You're creating flows of stages and you're saying, okay, when a user interacts with something in this way, what happens afterwards? If the user makes an error, what happens? Do you let the user know in some way? How does the user understand what's going on? That's sort of the interaction design piece. Information architecture is a pretty straightforward concept. It's essentially you're mapping out all the pages on your website. This would be a very simple one, but where you just say, okay, these are the top level pages, the home, the about, the contact, the get a quote, and then there's oftentimes sub-pages, and then within that sub-pages, possibly. There are different ways of structuring websites, and information architecture is something that kind of concerns itself with that. Because this is sort of a traditional way to design a website, but then oftentimes now sometimes you have websites that are all on one page, where just all the content is sort of just in sections or slides on the same page. So that's, but yeah, this is where you sort of map and think through how all the content, how all the pages on your website, if you have pages, are structured. Then we'll go into interface design, and interface design is essentially where you start to put all the content together in a very, you could say, low fidelity mock-ups, where you kind of organize things and in some simple way where it can easily be moved around and tried out, but you concern yourself with structure and layout, and then navigation design. That you'd think that maybe the information architecture kind of takes care of that, but there's more that goes into navigation design. That's where is the person on the website? That's one of the pieces. Where am I on the website? That sort of there are cues that help the user understand where they are. How did I arrive here? The where are you on the website oftentimes is perhaps accomplished. Answer that question is accomplished by when the user clicks on some of the navigation items that once you're on that page, that the page that you're on is somehow highlighted or bolded in some way or underlined. But then also, how did I arrive here? That's oftentimes one that can be very useful for users is including something called breadcrumbs, where you sort of have each stage or each page that the user went to before they got to where they are now. And so they can easily go back to a page before that they perhaps want to go to. So that's navigation design. It concerns itself the location on the website and how the user knows that and how the user gets around. And then obviously you get into visual design, and visual design takes everything together and puts it into high fidelity mock-ups that look almost like the website. Oftentimes people use Photoshop for that kind of thing, but also there are online tools that create these high fidelity mock-ups where you can even create little drop downs and create forms and know how things interact, and sort of where you can include the functional piece as well as the design piece. So that's what visual design concerns itself with. One of the things that I wanted to touch on real quick is, you may have heard of this concept before, brand guide. Oftentimes, when you want to develop a website, or when you're creating a company, or when you have a company and you want to create a website, it's good to think of things that are think of some standards with regards to design in a way where when you have touch points, different touch points with your customers, that you always sort of communicate and have a consistent look and feel of your brand. And the brand guide tries to establish that by pinning down things like the logo and how the logo should be used, the margins around the logo, whether it's okay to have it on certain colors or not, how it interacts with certain colors. I mentioned margins before, a buffer or padding around the logo. Oftentimes this includes things like I mentioned, the colors, for example. The brand colors of Cornell University would be this red and this gray specifically. And also, what this guide would include is the font, the typeface that is used. So that whenever content is created for you, even the text has a certain look. Well, some simple things to concern yourself with when you have somebody creating a logo, for example, is that a logo these days should be created so it can be used in a lot of different environments. There's something called a favicon in web design, where it's a little tiny image that you can see usually when you have a tab open in your browser window. Just a little touch of. It's usually the logo icon. Usually a logo consists of an icon and a logo typeface or text. And so it's good if you have a logo that can be used as a favicon, but then also can be obviously shown very large. So having that whole range, and also a logo that can interact with different environments, can look fine on color and on different variations of background, essentially. And with regards to colors, obviously, some basics are that colors do have depending on what color you use, colors have very different, or people react very differently to different colors. So it's very important to choose the ones that again, coming from that user need and also from your goals, your company goals, understanding how to create the impact that you want to create with your brand. An example would be that dark blue, for example, is often connected with professionalism and experience, and light blue more with playfulness and immaturity, perhaps. Red, the color red is associated with sometimes aggression. It actually increases your metabolic rate. White is oftentimes referred connected to or associated with cleanliness, clarity. The wedding dress, the inside of a hospital. Those things are. Blue obviously is also associated. Is a colder color, so it can have a sort of soothing and calming effect. Green. Darker green is again has more of a professional, more experienced perhaps look, and lighter greens are more same like with blue, a little more playful, a little more, a little less on the experienced side, but also vibrant and energetic. Typefaces that you include also in your website and hopefully in brand guide as well, are also something that you have to pick very carefully. The way that a font looks can also have a very subtle impact on the reader. It can enable reading, or it can actually disable reading, depending on how it's styled. And also when choosing something that you want to use as a standard, it's important to choose a typeface that has a lot of what we call font weights in web design, where there's a big range in how thick that font can display itself. One of the things that I worked on in the past with the TM organization is, we've at one point a brand guide was established, and one of the fonts that was chosen was I believe Verdana or some very standard font, old font that you may have heard of. But that font, that typeface doesn't have a lot of variance in the weight, and so it's very difficult to really create good designs with that. So creating something like that is important. Selecting a typeface that has a lot of range in its weight. Search engine optimization, to explain real quick, I mean, probably a lot of you understand what it is, but search engines are obviously in the business of delivering content that's relevant to those who search. And so the goal of search engines is to provide the relevant content. And what people do when they search is they type in keywords or keyword phrases. And then when on the search results page, the items that are listed based on what Google or another search engine defines as the most relevant for that content. And the way that that impacts traffic to those sites is that all of those people from all of those people that search for a certain keyword phrase or keyword, 50% click on the first link, 25% on the second, and so forth. So that's why it's such an important effort to try to rank as high as possible in search engines, because it translates into traffic in that way. And also, it's a good effort in that at least if you spend a little bit of time and do a little bit of research, it's something that you can set up and then just let go, and then it'll just kind of do its thing on its own. It's not like advertising where you need to be actively involved and constantly tweak the bid or whatever you're dealing with. In this case, it's something you set up and then you can kind of let it run its course. That's mostly true. The way that search engines work is essentially that you have what they call a spider that crawls around the website, the web, and follows links, and then finds new pages, and in that way maps websites, identifies new websites, and then maps them out, and then this, what you could call the indexer or the indexing function of the search engine identifies what each page is about, and that results in the ranking of that page. There are different tactics. Then when you want to try to influence the ranking, the relevancy, there are these different tactics that you can do as a website owner, and this is called this first piece is called OnSite SEO. And essentially, what you're trying to do is you're putting the keyword phrase in if you can have the keyword phrase in the domain name or the subdomain, or at least the page name. That is helpful, and we'll go into that in a moment to explain that a little further. Have the page title have the keyword phrase. Have the largest headline of the website have the keyword phrase. Internal links from other pages, having those internal links also have the text, the keyword phrase included. And then also having the keyword phrase in the content of your page is a good thing to do. Although not too much. Otherwise Google considers that as keyword stuffing, and it's also not a pleasant user experience. It takes away of the user experience. Obviously, this would be an example of having if my keyword phrase would be sourdough bread, that would be a domain name that would include my keyword phrase, and having that is a pretty good factor in creating relevancy or making sure that search engines consider you as relevant. This would be an example of a subdomain, keyword phrase in a subdomain. sourdoughbread.baking.com. You've probably seen that before. Students.M.U.M.edu. That's what is referred to as a subdomain. This is, or I mentioned also having a page name with the keyword phrase, and you can see that at the bottom here. www.baking.com/sourdoughbread.html. Sourdoughbread.html would be the page name, and again, that is also a good thing to do. If you can't have it, in one of the other ones, in the subdomain or in the domain name itself. Page title. The page title is something that you see on the tab. Oh, and here we have an example of the favicon again, but here's the page title. This is where the page title shows up. Having the keyword phrase in the page title of that page is important. And this is also where it shows up then in the search. So your page title also is that blue text that you see in Google as the biggest headline for that item. Okay, and then talking about the largest headline. I mean, just visually, obviously, this is the largest headline. But usually what we refer to in web design or front-end development as the largest headline is the H1. In HTML, you have the H1 being the largest and it goes all the way to H6. So the H1 should also include the keyword phrase, if possible. Internal links. If you link, if you link from another page of your website to this page, then having that link specify sourdough bread instead of saying read more or click here, or actually saying the keyword phrase in the link is a good thing to do. Mentioning it there. Okay, and then here there's an example of the keyword phrase in the content. It's obvious. It's good to have the keyword phrase at the beginning of the content if you can, and then scatter it maybe once, twice in this kind of piece. Maybe once more is helpful. One other thing that I want to mention that's called a meta description. It's not really something that helps you rank better in search engines, but it is something that can result in a greater what is referred to as click-through rate, and it's essentially the rate at which people click on your link on the search results page. In a meta description, essentially is a little description of what your page is about. It kind of summarizes the page and also should probably include the keyword phrase as well. When you don't specify this yourself, Google will just pick something from your page and display it as a meta description. So it's good to influence that yourself and write something that is enticing and makes people want to click on the link. Then there's something called Offside SEO, and this is sadly what Google considers as much more specifically the backlinks, which essentially is other websites linking to you, is what Google considers much more valuable than anything you do on your website. So the effort of creating that, it's a difficult one. Calling up Amazon and saying, could you please put a link to my website on your website? It's not something they would do. But there are efforts that can encourage other people to link to you. One of them is something is referred to as guest blogging, where you write blogs for blog articles for larger blogs, like Elephant Journal, for example. I had a friend who wrote a blog article for Elephant Journal, and then she was able to backlink to her own website with that blog. So it is on the other website, and you're adding value to them with an article that's probably good, and then you get a little SEO juice with that as well. So that's called this. The one thing the best thing that you could probably also do is just have really quality content on your website, because then it just encourages people to link to you if you're a good reference or resource for certain content. Apart from regular search engines, there's also other search engines like YouTube, Yelp, Google Maps, and Google Images. There's obviously others as well, sort of topical-based search engines, and these function very similarly, like the search, like Google or Bing, in that you also have to figure out these keyword phrases in both YouTube and Yelp, you have to come up with these keyword phrases, these categories in Yelp that you want to rank for, and there are different tactics. But having in YouTube, having the keyword phrase in your video title, having the keyword phrase in the video name that you upload to YouTube is a good thing. Enabling closed captions from YouTube is a helpful thing for YouTube to understand what's going on in the video. It can determine that the text it can create captions from the video and understand what's included in the video. So if the video is a good resource on that topic, then Google is more likely to give it a better ranking. There are many tools that you can use for finding out these keyword phrases that people use. One specific tool that is free that most people use is the Google AdWords Keyword Planner tool, and with that, essentially, you can put in your keyword phrase and then see how much traffic it's getting. There's another tool, also by this is by Moz.com. This is a great website if you're really serious about search engine optimization. Their Keyword Explorer tool lets you put in your keyword phrase, and then it gives you not only how much traffic that specific keyword is getting, but how many times it's searched per month, but also how much competition there is by other websites trying to rank for that keyword. So content creation, really quickly, just generally about, when you write written content, generally, obviously the tone should be appropriate for your brand, but often also a polite and conversational tone works well. One thing that people don't understand that well yet, and it's really something that I've had a lot of conversations about, is the way that people don't read online, unless it's blog articles. People skim and people try to find the information that's useful to them, and otherwise, if there's nothing useful, if they can't find something quickly that they're looking for, they navigate away. They leave your website. They're not committed. And so writing in a way that appeals to that understands that perspective is really important. So breaking up your larger pieces of text into 2 paragraphs perhaps, and having each have a subheadline, and short pieces of text with subheadlines, bullet points, things where people can easily bolded or italicized, or things where text stands out a little bit and where it can easily understand the information and quickly find what the person is looking for. That's very important. How to build websites. Like I said, there are multiple options to create websites. You can have a hard-coded, custom-built website. That's usually more on the expensive side, where you pay for your domain, you pay for your hosting, although sometimes your domain is included in your hosting, and then your design and development for a simple website, maybe $3,000 or more. Hard-coded websites using templates. Obviously there are a lot of people that have created websites and created templates, even hard-coded templates that can be used. That's a cheaper way to set up a website. Even cheaper and probably easier are what I call drag-and-drop website builders, like Weebly.com, Wix.com, Squarespace.com. Those are sort of website builders where even if you don't understand HTML and CSS, or if you don't want to hire somebody, if you want to kind of be in control, but also be limited to some degree, you can use these tools and then just say, you can use a template that exists and put, you can grab some text, put it here, grab an image, put it here. It's really drag and drop, where you take a piece of content and put it somewhere where you want it to be. Your prices to all of those. Then there's what are called content management systems, like WordPress or Drupal or Joomla, that oftentimes are database, they're always database connected. And these systems, specifically WordPress, also there's a huge amount of themes that exists where people have designed websites, designed structures and functionality that you can apply to your own website. And this is also a cheaper way to set up a website. It takes some learning, the WordPress system, but so somewhat. The easiest certainly are Weebly.com or Wix.com or Squarespace. Those, if you really want to set it up quickly, if you are on a tight schedule and want to have something up, in a matter of hours, those are your better choice. Landing pages. Landing pages are commonly referred to as those pages that people get to when they click on some kind of an ad. Sometimes they're also just referred to as the pages that people get to first when they come to your website, especially when you talk about Google Analytics, which we'll go over in our last session. But in this case, I want to talk about it as sort of the place that people land when they click on a banner ad or some kind of ad online. And a good landing page takes into consideration how people make a decision. That contains usually these different steps or stages: attention, interest, desire, action. That's those different stages. The acronym is AIDA. You may have heard of it before. Attention is usually that stage where people get somewhere and they look around and something sort of, something grabs them. Something is saying, okay, this is the first thing you look at. The biggest title, the biggest graphic. And then once you've created that piece of content, following that into the interest stage, where you build interest, where you give people more, where you drag them in with good bold headlines, a good value proposition. Then building desire, and there's a ton of things that you can do to build desire, but essentially the desire stage is one where the user is trying to research the product or service that they're looking at, and so comparisons, videos, short descriptions, features, benefits. You've probably seen that as at a website for your iPhone or something like that, where it explains all the features and everything, and goes into all the things that people want to know about the. Also giving social proof, giving testimonials or reviews. That's something that desires that appeals to that desire stage, where you build desire. Then the action stage is obviously one where the user has decided to take the action that you're asking them to take with an engaging CTA. And examples for an engaging CTA would be something that is value connected. So often, sometimes you see buttons that say submit or that say send. Those are bad CTAs. Good CTA text is something that's really value connected, that says reserve a seat, request info, download free ebook, something that really has a concrete sort of outcome. That's a good CTA. I'd like to leave you with a little marketing wisdom that I've gotten from my mentor and boss Ron Barnett. Great marketing isn't selling something, it is creating the conditions for the prospective to sell it to him or herself. So instead of saying, this is the best product, you want the prospective client to come to that conclusion on their own. All right. And this will be, it's not ready, but I'll set it up tonight. This is the website that you can go to get resources for the course.